Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the second Thursday in January 2024. This is the 11th of January. And I am going to first pass the mic, so to speak, off to Buzz because he's waiting to go to a Texas Environmental Quality Museum meeting. And so that way he can let us know some info because we have the auto show, Houston Auto Show coming up. And so take it away, Buzz.
All righty. Several things I want to talk to you all about. The first one is the organization that I'm in. I was on January 1st appointed the interim executive director for the Texas Electric Transportation Resources Alliance. Really long name, etc. But we are your voice with the state legislature. And in this last session, we had several successes. We helped push through Senate Bill 1001 and 1002, which will help us with regulation and licensing of EV chargers, public EV chargers. And this will be important, just like we have gasoline pumps. You see those stickers on them. Somebody from Weights and Measures, has to make sure that you're getting a gallon of gas when you pay for a gallon of gas. And the same thing's true in the electric world. We've got to have a complaint process that's put in place so that if the chargers are having problems and not staying up enough, that the public has a way to notify the state government that that's going on so we can get that resolved. We had some real battles that I think we semi-won, and one of them I'm sure you're all aware of is the registration fees for EVs this year. Now, I want you to know that the original bills in front of the Congress or in the front of the legislature had a $1,400 fee at the time that you purchase an electric vehicle, a new electric vehicle, and they wanted $300 a year on top of the usual annual vehicle registration fee. Now, we had done a study at TechCetra that showed that a pickup truck only generates $89 a year in gasoline taxes that are used for road repair. Now, the federal government matches that, so that's $178. And so there was another bill that we were leaning towards supporting, which was for the $200 fee that we ended at. So we did fight to kill the $300 and the $1,400. The $1,400, by the way, came back as a $400 fee at the time of purchase. And when we settled for the $200, the deal we made with a particular politician was that if we would just stop fighting, that they would put into place a pilot program where they would test a fee based on the weight of your vehicle and the number of miles you drive per year, because that is exactly how you can equate all vehicles and how much damage and wear and tear they're putting on the roads. Of course, what then happened was they killed vehicle inspection, which is where we capture the mileage data. So what I want to go back with next year next year in 2025, when the legislature goes, 2025, the legislature goes back into session. Sales tax. I've got sales tax for the evangelists. If people buy T-shirts from me, I have to pay the state sales tax. And the state lets me self-report that revenue. So the EV fee is a tiny, tiny fraction of sales tax in Texas. So why can't we self-report our mileage, either on a quarterly basis if we want to pay 4 smaller fees all year long, or on an annual basis if we don't mind a one-time-a-year lump sum payment. And then at the time we sell the car, the law requires that an odometer statement be taken. So if an unscrupulous EV driver was to underreport their mileage all that time, when they sold the vehicle, well, that's when the cheating that they did would come to light, and they'd have to pay those fees before the title could actually be transferred. So that's one of the issues that I'm going to be pushing for in the next legislative session. So the long story comes to this. We are going through a rebranding. So the thing you'll have to remember is our website is now txev.org instead of texetra.org. We now charge a $25 annual fee. And the way we came up with that is we saved you $100 a year for the rest of your life already, or at least the rest of your life that you have an EV. We're asking for 25 of that back so we can keep fighting for you in the state legislature. Now, I have worked closely for the last 4 years at the Houston Auto and Boat Show with Evolve Houston. And Casey, their executive director, was talking about having me come out again. And I'm not really going to be doing it as the evangelist this time. I'll be doing it as TXEV or TechCetra, whatever we're calling ourselves at the time. But if they do invite me to do that, we will have an EV area where we will be talking to people about the EV lifestyle. And, you know, people don't buy cars. Most people don't buy cars based on its environmental impact. You know this. They buy for acceleration, for handling, for low cost of, or high MPG, or in our case, MPGE, for low cost of maintenance, for low total cost of ownership. And these are the things that we need to talk to people about. And no one is better than that, than an EV driver. So if I do get invited to the auto show, I will be asking you guys to join me. We'll put up a way for us to schedule, you know, who will be there at what times. And we will talk to the public as real world EV drivers and tell them what it's like. The other event that's coming up that you should know about is the East Texas EV road trip. We did one in West Texas. We went through places like, I'm drawing a blank. It's in the Permian Basin, but you know, out there, it's all oil and gas. And so you would think we're out there among the enemy, but we had great news coverage. We had chambers of commerce coming out to listen about the economic opportunity that EV charging has for small towns. And it was a very good road show. We're going to do the same thing this time. We're going to start in Beaumont, and we're going to go up to Texarkana over about a 3-day period. We'll even have an electric school bus with us. So when we do that, we'll let you know. If you know people that live in the cities that we're going through that are curious about EVs, please let them know that we're coming to town. Have them come out and ask questions, and we'll be there to give them the same sort of experience. And we're going to do ride and drive events. So we will take people in our own personal cars and drive them around to show them what EV performance is all about. So that's what we're up to. Just wanted to make sure you guys are aware of who we are. And again, I'm pleading with you, join us in this. The guy who was the executive director from the date our organization was founded until December 31st was a legend in Texas politics and Texas lobbying. Smitty had been working in the Texas state capitol for 42 years. Yep. Now that he's retired, that was a big hit for us and a big hit for you. And I'm going to do the best job I can. We still have lobbyists that we're paying for. But as you can see, the battle's getting more and more heated. And we need to get people to back us to go in there and fight for you. I think somebody just asked for the address. I think they're talking about the web address. It's TXEV. So just think TexasEVs.org. We are a nonprofit organization.
Okay. Yeah, I was trying to look at the chat and decipher if they're looking for the room here at 6501. Because we are actually in a different room, our normal room, but we're right across the lobby. So if you just kind of open your ears, you might hear us talking in this other room because there's no door. He's not in the building? Okay. All right. Yeah.
Well, that's what I had for you guys. I really appreciate y'all inviting me to come share our mission with you.
Just wanted to clear up one thing about the auto show. So you're looking for volunteers because it's the auto show's coming up starting like the 24th of January. You're running through that weekend.
Well, right now, Evolve Houston has not asked me to run the show yet. So we're just waiting to hear.
Okay. So you should look at that txev.org site and see if sometime you're asking for volunteers between now and when the auto show opens.
Yeah. And another thing we'll do, if you're a member, you will get a monthly news email letter from us. You'll also get emails that will be titled Legislative Alert. If we send you that, they are trying to do something bad to EV drivers in Texas, and we are asking for everybody to call or email. We don't want form letters. We don't want what looks like chain mail. We want each person to actually, say in their own words why this is a bad thing. And Smitty explained to me one time that if just 10 regular everyday citizens contact a legislator and talk to them from the heart, we can change their vote. But if they get, they get lobbyists all day long, and if they get a chain mail type of email, then they're just going to be, oh, this is just, a bunch of people all clicking, yeah, I don't like this. And
So
it
it's
means nothing to them.
constituents writing something personal on an issue that gets their attention more than other types of info that they get.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, legislators are not evil, but if they don't know anything about EVs, do we really want someone, just a junior member of their staff, writing the EV regulations for Texas, or do we want them to get informed by real EV drivers like you and me?
Right.
Right.
And we know that just like there's a difference between those that represent more rural parts of Texas and those that represent more urban parts and so forth. So yeah, educating our legislature is important. So, all right, you head off to that TCEQ meeting and we'll continue on with some things. If you get a chance to come back in before 8:30, please do onto this Zoom. And if not, then we'll talk to you later.
Okay. And I'm hoping I see you guys at the auto show.
Yep.
All right. Y'all take care.
Doug, yeah, somebody's talking about a lot of fun last year. So, all right, Doug, did you want to say something right at this point?
Yeah, I was trying to unmute. It was for Buzz, but he's probably checked out. He's in a hurry. I was going to tell him that we're doing a lot of EV infrastructure over in East Texas right now. So
Great.
We'll have to let him know where all those are at.
Right, and we'll all be communicating with Buzz some more. This meeting, he found out about it very late. I think he's substituting for someone else, and so that's why he asked to talk for 10, 15 minutes right here at the beginning so that he could now run into that meeting and obviously, hopefully do some good things there. But he brought up a number of points talking about the 200 and 400. So I've mentioned that in past club meetings in various months. And so the thing that is coming up later this month, so there won't be another meeting before it, is the auto show. And so do you want to call up the PowerPoint, Colin? And because we've had some folks volunteer at the auto show before, talking to the public, and it was a lot of fun when I did it, because some of the vehicles were locked and other vehicles were not locked in the area where they had the EVs displayed. And is it the next page that has the auto show?
No.
Or if you can go to the auto show page, whichever one that is, we'll jump around a little. Yeah. So the answer to the riddle was that some of the vehicles that were out there that were some of the EVs that were accessible to the public came from dealerships, and they would allow them to be unlocked. But actually some personal vehicles were out there as well. I think like a BMW i3, and that was not allowed to be unlocked per the owner's specification. That seems certainly fair because it's somebody's own personal vehicle that they were willing to put out there for the public to touch the outside of anyway. And so that was one of the things that was a mystery for a while there at the previous auto show. But so just can recommend to folks, look at txev.org. So that's something new because Texetra had a longer name before, and it is a matter of keeping up with these things. So, and we've heard that the Evolve group is also reorganizing a little bit, or at least that's what I had heard like about a year ago. So we need to learn what's going on with those things. But so 24th to the 28th, okay. Can you go to the auto show page?
Well, we can, or we can just
Okay.
go through the presentation. Be there.
Well, I just thought I'd cover it while we're there. There we go. Okay. Because I knew it had the dates up there. That's why I wanted to have that. So thanks for bringing those up there. And so this statement about looking for volunteers is just not clear yet, but you can see some of us who are volunteering at a previous show. I'm standing there at the right-hand side, and it's a lot of fun talking to folks. So once we get that cleared up, I'm hoping that we'll get a number of folks to volunteer. So
Yeah, hang on a second. I don't think I've shared.
Can folks online see the slide from the PowerPoint?
No.
Colin's working on getting it to share in the room here. We could see it. So Okay. So some of the other things to mention, so past, we had a great social in December. So thanks for all the folks bringing out their family members for that. And I think we had like 21 folks or so. And of course, we spent a lot of time out in the parking lot as well as socializing inside. Katz's never closes. So that's our usual routine is in December, not to have a second Thursday meeting, but to have the is it sharing? Okay, folks online, see the slides? Should be going out now, okay.
Yeah, we can see it now.
Okay, yeah, because it has the dates and the mention about the volunteers. So yeah, we can go back. All right, so the past events. That one's not going out yet, okay. Okay, so the social there, yeah, I got caught in the act on the left side, so we can forget about that picture as much, but my wife is there wearing red, so that was nice that she got in that shot. But more important to the lower right, oh, it's great to see Ken's bug-eyed Sprite, which has been converted to electric. So we can see Ken and Kevin having a blast in the car out in the parking lot. As I mentioned, the parking lot was half of the social. So, okay, next slide. So events, speakers, anybody who has a topic and knows somebody who can talk about it, please recommend to one of the officers here. And we also asked the question where we want this club to be going in the future. So please bring up those ideas. You can email them to that Houston TX EVA email address. So the auto show, you can just go to enjoy it and see it. Or if we get things organized for volunteers, if Buzz does hear back, then that would be fun. And then events last year, they had the National EVA club meeting in Carlsbad, California, and they're going to do it at that same Aptera headquarters. So those who are not familiar with Aptera, it's a very aerodynamic EV, really looks super, and they're hoping to get it into production soon. And it's great that that organization can be a location for our national meeting. If you can't get out there in person, and I know this year I won't, it's on Saturday the 27th, and you can join it by Zoom. And you can see the address down there at the bottom. But for folks that are members of the National, and I encourage everybody to join National, that does cost $55 a year, but you get a lot of benefits from that. If you just stay local in Houston, we don't charge anything. And upcoming events, so we're already looking at DEED, Drive Electric Earth Day, coming up in April. So something else to volunteer for if you get a chance. If not, just come on out and talk to everybody with the EVs. And we're looking at doing Discovery Green and possibly IKEA. Other locations, if there's a school parking lot or something like that that you'd like to also show EVs at, we can do as many locations as we get folks to volunteer to staff. So, all right, EVs for sale. Bill, this is the one that I was talking about that normally we don't do a lot because there are, of course, websites people can look at for EVs for sale. But in particular, I think it's always sad when you see a vehicle that is no longer running, and this one you can kind of tell is not in running condition. If somebody would like to take on the project to get it running or be able to use parts from it, whatever is the most viable way of doing it. This is a Leaf. I know it's kind of hard to tell. Yeah, this is the right-hand photo. You can see the little charge door at the front that's cockeyed. And yeah, so it's kind of sad, but like I say, I figured it was worth a mention here at our meetings, and some helpful soul maybe will take that on. So here's some more words on joining our national EV. Of course, you can join our local group, which is always fun. You can attend these meetings either in person or via Zoom. And I always like folks to be sharing, which we'll do more at the end of the meeting. So we originally had 2 speakers lined up today, but unfortunately, due to a death in the family, our E-Lion electric bus speaker could not make it this evening, but we hope to reschedule him for a future month. But we do have our folks here. Well, one other point before I hand it over. So Here in the room, we've got some of these EV1 sheets. They're also available on the national site for download so that it can be helpful to let other folks know about what's happening in the EV world. We also have business cards that you can pick up here for free and hand out to folks. But yeah, exactly. Newbies at charging stations. I've spoken with folks that have rented EVs at charging stations, and they're kind of, like you say, newbies. And
My last long road trip, I ran into a bunch of people who had gotten a manager's choice, and what they got as a manager's choice was an EV. So they weren't even expecting an EV.
Okay. Well, yeah, it can always be different experiences. In fact, I just recently with my wife, we made a trip to France and we rented an EV, and that was my first time driving an EV in France. And so I was learning about charging and things and the expressions in French and so forth. All right, enough of that. I'd like to get over to our EV tech guest, and they are here on Zoom with us, and we really appreciate the time, and reading about their technology is just really exciting. And so both of you guys, I'll let you introduce yourselves. And so take it away. Doug, Maceo, who'd ever like to go first?
Okay.
Maceo?
Yeah, I'll get started. Thank you guys for inviting us and giving us an opportunity to spend some time with the membership and with your chapter of EVA. This is great. It's exciting. It's good to get as much exposure to as many parts of the national EV community as we can. And it's a bilateral benefit. At least we hope and we think. So thank you so much for that. My name is Maceo Ward, Maceo. I always have to spell it out. Makes it easier. I'm the CEO of EV Tech, and I'll get us started here with a little bit of a high-level introduction of EV Tech before turning it over to Doug. But I'll let Doug introduce himself first before I get us going with our kind of high-level presentation there.
Yeah, I'm Doug Canfield. I have a very long history going back to probably 1985. I know for a fact my life started turning into electric motors and drive systems and all of that, and been doing it ever since. We've been myself been deeply involved in the charging infrastructure of electric vehicles pretty much full time since 1996. So we'll get into a lot of that later on.
Okay, good. And
Okay.
I'd also like to mention, folks can put questions in the chat if you'd like to, and then our speakers can either look at the chat, or we'll let you know what the chat says either during the presentation or at the end. It's up to everyone's choice.
Okay.
So again, my name is Maceo Ward. I'm going to do my level best not to bore you to death. Just give you some insight into who we are, who EV Tech is, and a little bit about our history, and then turn it over to Doug as quickly as possible, because he's the guy that's got all the fun stuff and the cool pictures and that kind of thing. So that's the way we'll handle it. I actually, I've been with EV Tech for 11 years now. This is starting our 11th year together, Doug and I. Me joining him in the company as the original founder of the company. I started off my professional career at Motorola in the communications operations division of the Government Electronics Group, and then spent some time in aerospace for a number of years, the aerospace division of Motorola, in Phoenix at the time, before transitioning over into the semiconductor and microelectronics industry, where I spent another 20-something years. And then I've spent the last 10 years or so with Dev, like I said. So I started at age 16 now, by the way. That's when I started my career at Motorola. So, hopefully I'm younger than I look. Let's put it that way. So what I like to tell people about EV Tech, I mean, and for this group, you know, what I'd like to, you know, kind of charge you with is, you know, if you don't remember anything else that Doug and I say about EV Tech this evening, just remember this very first bullet point. And that is that EV Tech is not, you know, an equipment company that has a sales force, you know, selling EV charging station and related infrastructure. But we're actually an engineering and design and technology company that sells EV charging station and does infrastructure development. You know, EV charging stations, you know, again, the company was kind of founded on that premise. You know, Doug is one of the original purveyors of the technology and the industry on a global basis, and that's no exaggeration. But we did have a bit of an overture with a broader product portfolio for a period of time, where we actually sold small format wind turbines, electric hub motors, e-bikes, and EV charging stations. But what we quickly, you know, found after a while is that, you know, our efforts, you know, both from an engineering and commercial standpoint, were being too heavily diffused across too broad a product portfolio. And so, you know, we talked about it as a leadership team and decided that we would reconstitute the company so that we would focus solely on the EV charging station, which we perceive to be, you know, the strongest horse in the race. And so we're really, really happy we did that. That's been about 3 years now. It's, you know, served us extremely well as our client community and constituency, because we're able to focus, you know, more fully and holistically on just the EV charging, you know, ecosystem and, you know, product and service offering. So we now spend the majority of our time in multifamily residential, you know, commercial developments. You know, we, you know, sell and do installations and operation of EV charging stations for municipalities, retailers like hotels, you know, gas stations, auto dealers, and fleet operators. Doug will talk about his, you know, again, very long, extensive, and storied history in the EV charging, you know, renewable sustainability energy space at large. Again, you know, having forged products with and performance standards with some of the industry's most recognizable organizations like SAE, you know, and Electric Power Institute, Research Institute, etc. And Doug will talk a little bit about that more extensively a little bit later when we turn it over to him. Again, you know, the company has been in business and operation over 25 years now. We provided EV charging systems, components, and smart charging solutions for some of the largest property developers and public infrastructure properties nationwide. Companies like Trammell Crow, RPM, Greystar, and others that you would recognize, as well as municipalities and some of those other segments of the industry that I just mentioned a moment ago. So, you know, our, you know, mission is to partner with organizations like Houston EVA to do our part in accelerating the world's transition to zero-emission electric vehicles by providing a network operating system and charging stations that power EV charging networks nationwide. Doug would get, you know, upset with me if I, you know, spent any time on this and stole his thunder. So again, I'm going to leave that up to him to talk about in greater detail. Again, you know, EV Tech, just some of the advantages of you know, working with us and, you know, the benefits that we bring again to our client community is, you know, because we're not, you know, a sales organization that sells, you know, EV charging equipment. We're an engineering, design, and technology company that makes it available, you know, for the folks that trust us, you know, with their, you know, with their property and their properties and requirements. We had very, very competitive pricing. You know, we compete with, you know, all the largest companies, you know, in the industry, ChargePoint, Electrify America, you know, and others that you would that you would recognize. Again, the benefit to, you know, one of our distinctive advantages is we handle all of our support requirements internally from cradle to grave, meaning, you know, from start to finish, I should say, from inception to completion and activation and startup of the units, you know, from designing, you know, the system configuration, you know, regardless of, you know, what kind of use case, business case, or, you know, property or operation we're designing a system for. And we oversee the entire installation process from that point forward. Doug's going to talk a lot about how we are able to minimize and alleviate costly electrical upgrades because of the software and firmware that's integrated into our equipment set that allows us, you know, to do load sharing and to, you know, have integrated expandability on a given electrical circuit or panel. You know, again, none of us are novices, you know, to the industry. So, you know, this is just a confirmation of, you know, things that we are all seeing, you know, ourselves. Last year, we crossed the threshold of nearly 1.3 million EVs being in operation in the United States. We've all seen the statistics, you know, that's driving, you know, the industry at, you know, pretty, you know, astonishing rate. You know, we're headed toward being 30% of all vehicles sold by the end of 2025, you know, just 2 years from now, which is fantastic, very exciting, and, you know, exhilarating for all of us. That said, though, we still know that there's some headwinds, you know, from a, you know, consumer and general public standpoint, recognizing that there's still, you know, a large percentage of, you know, the American prospective buying public, they're still holding back a little bit, you know, because, I mean, they're excited about the infrastructure, you know, proposal and, you know, the investment dollars that are being put into the development of the infrastructure nationwide, but they're still holding back a little bit because 32% of those folks, you know, still showing some hesitancy because of lack of access to reliable charging. And we all know that that's still true. I read an article, you know, I hear people talking to me all the time about, you know, range anxiety or, you know, showing up to a charging station that wasn't operable. And it always makes me think of an article that I read in one of the automobile magazines recently, where they said, you know, complaining about available EV charging stations today is like the Wright brothers, you know, standing on the runway of Kitty Hawk, you know, with a client, you know, with a would-be passenger yelling at them, going, you know, what are you guys doing? Hurry up! You know, I got a flight to catch, you know, and LAX, you know, in 2 hours. I was like, it's gonna happen. You know, the infrastructure is being developed right in front of our very face, you know, eyes, and we all know that we're all a part of that. And so we just need to, you know, continue to encourage, you know, the would-be EV owners, you know, that are going to join us over time, that it's happening, you know. So, you know, last year again, you know, we get 148,000 EV ports in the United States by the end of last year. That's more than double since, you know, 2018. So the infrastructure is coming about at an alarming, you know, pretty, you know, significant and brisk pace. You know, EV sales are, you know, increasing dramatically. You know, 800,000 you know, EV chargers are going to be installed by you know, 2030, and that still won't be enough to support that 30% you know, migration to EVs from internal combustion engines. But you know, companies like EV Techs and others are helping to you know, build a more accessible charging network through roaming agreements and that sort of thing. We hit the 5% threshold at the end of last year. Actually, it was 6%. And, just a staggering, projected 13.8 million, EVs are, forecasted to be built in just 2000, forecasted to be built in 2023 alone. So, things are moving along very quickly. This, maybe some of you have seen, this data, in other, formats or forms or maybe not, but this is just kind of a high level glimpse of, the demand that's driving the requirement for EV charging stations and infrastructure across the United States. The thing to take away from this is not the individual, manufacturers themselves, but the fact that, we all know that it was the luxury brands and high-end models that, kind of led the forefront of, driving the, volumetric gains in, EV sales in the industry at large. But now what's starting to happen is you're starting to see some of the more mid-range and lower cost automobile manufacturers bring to market vehicles, in the sub $35,000 and sub $25,000 price range, which of course was driving that volume gain of 30% of total vehicles manufactured by 2025, and the need for the EV charging stations to be able to support all those new vehicles on the road. This is just kind of a fun fact. This is on our website as well. We actually put this together internally, as an organization, because every time we went to a trade show or any kind of a public forum or venue, this was, these were the questions we got asked all the time. Okay, well, how many hours of charge, do we get per charge? Or how long does it take to charge my vehicle? How much is it going to cost us, on average per charging session? So, these are just kind of fun facts that, that we have available. We wanted to make it available in an easy to consume, easy to digest the kind of fashion, and a way that, again, the general public could, just kind of take a quick glance and put a framework around, what the requirements are for keeping your vehicle on the road, so really to eliminate some of the fear, some of the range anxiety, and that kind of thing that all of us, get exposed to anytime we get into a conversation with someone that's fairly new to electric vehicles and the electric vehicle, industry. So again, for EV Tech explicitly, these are the major industry segments that we support. Just kind of re-emphasizing, some of the early, comments I made about who we are and, the space that we operate within. And
If I can interrupt for a second.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, if I can just interrupt so we can make this a little more interactive. I encourage folks behind me here now, if you can see my image on the Zoom, I've got some folks behind me, and there's even more that don't show, but you're talking about the different types of charging, and of course there's been a development over the last few months about what standard we're going to use in North America. So do you address both the CCS and the NACS standards?
We do, and I'll let Doug speak to that more extensively. But our all of our charging stations, from the level 2 charging stations all the way up to the DC fast chargers, and so this is just kind of a high level look at our product portfolio. So we go from level 2 AC chargers that are 7 kW effectively and max output power, to the large DC fast chargers that are level 3, up to 360 kW hours of max output power, which are typically used for depot charging, that sort of thing. But to answer your question explicitly, every one of our chargers, and these represent the series, there's more than 4 products. These chargers go from 120 to 180 kW. We have several different models of the 360 kW charger, depending on the application. This is a 30 kW charger that's ideal for service bays in automobile dealerships, because we have one that's wall mounted and another one that looks exactly like this, that's portable, right? So it can go from bay to bay, very easily, just for, increased efficiency and utilization in one common area. But this series goes from 30 kW all the way up to 60 kW. Point being is that each one of these will handle any EV on the market today. And that's in large part because of the adapters that are now readily available for the Tesla vehicles as well. We all, remember a time not too long ago, really 18 to 24 months, that there was no adapter, for the Tesla vehicles to allow it to transition from the NAS standard, National North American standard,
NACS.
which the NACS, yes, standard, I'm sorry, which is the Tesla standard, to the CCS1. So those adapters that are available on the NACS vehicle standard will compatible with each one of our chargers, for each one of these types and each one within the series. And then, of course, all of ours are CCS1 compatible as well. And Doug will talk about that in greater detail as well. But does that help? Does it answer the question?
Well, if you let me jump in there for just a second, Maceo,
Sure, please do.
the short answer to their question is that we spent 18 years at SAE getting the standard together with the J1772. And then Musk went out and made a connector that uses the same J1772 protocol, all the same points, okay, but a different connector. and it's kind of leaving a bad taste in everybody's mouth. The bottom line is that all of our chargers can have a NACS connector on them. There's no difference on the charging protocol and everything. It's just the configuration of the connector. That's the only thing different. Everything else is the same, both on the Tesla charging stations and all of that. And they do have adapters that you can buy that go both ways, NACS to CCS or CCS to NACS.
Yes.
All Teslas, I think, come with an adapter for the J1772 standard.
Yep. Yeah. So I was always happy that the protocol was common behind them. And yeah, it's a matter of just which physical connector is on the end. And
Yeah.
was
Yeah,
kind
you're talking to the guy that wrote that protocol. So there you go. I know a thing or two about it.
all right. Well, this is even better. We have you online tonight. All right. Thanks.
Yeah, so we get that quite frequently. I mean, that's one of the most frequently asked questions. General social settings, or at events, that sort of thing, various different forums. Will your charger charge any electric vehicle? And effectively today, all chargers charge any electric vehicle because of the bilateral adapters, going from max to CCS1 and CCS1 back to max, like mentioned as well. So when people start and we still get we hear alarmists all the time that worry about what if you have a different connector at the end of your charging cable? It's like, it doesn't matter. The adapter is available for about $18, or something like that, maybe 25. So that I think that's the short answer really. So I'm going to turn it over to Doug now, and Doug, please give a little bit more insight into your background, and you can have an appreciation for the level of depth they would go into, relative to the technology and product and service offering.
Okay, and thank you, Maceo. Real quick, like on the smart energy management and all of that, before we start getting into a lot of these, these technical things. One of the big things that EV Tech over the last, 27, 26 years, 26, 27 years, me personally, I kept hearing, well, can it do this? Can it do that? Can it, right? The bottom line is that a charger is a charger is a charger. It's just an interface between power and the vehicle. That's all in the world it is. They all do the same. They all, they all have the same job to do and the same methods of doing it. Where we started making a huge difference was in adapting how that charging is handled. Okay, so one of the first things was smart energy management. Slide, please. Maceo. There you go. What we realized was first and foremost in the multifamily. Now, most of the work we were doing early on was fleets, with government fleets, utility fleets, and all of that. And one of the big bugaboos that kept coming up was that, dang, we'd go on to a site and there was only so much power to go around. And they want to put a fleet of vehicles in there. Well, we started out with that in this particular example you're seeing, there was only 160 amps. Now we're talking level 2 chargers, 7 kW chargers. So that's 32 amps per charger. So that's 160 amps total was all that was available without going to and boy, it runs into some dollars real quick when you start talking about transformers, new switch gear, new load centers, and all of that. It jumps that price per charger up, to $6,000 to $8,000 per charger to put chargers in like that. It's a very costly proposition for fleet operators and multifamily and in some commercial applications. So what we said was this operating system that we now use, we're constantly in contact with each charger at that location in the cloud. So what we can do is we still can start off with a 160 amp circuit, and this is just an example, and we can put more chargers on that one circuit. And the way that is car number 1 pulls in, 2, 3, and 4. Guess what? They're all going to be charging at the full power of the charger. But then car 5 and 6 pulls in, it says, wait a minute, we've only got, so much here to work with. Well, the other thing to look at is that the vehicles themselves, some are going to be fuller charged, some are going to be deeper discharged. So obviously they're pulling the most current. The ones that are, leveling off and finishing, topping off charging and all of that, they might be down to, 4 or 5 amps at that point because the voltage has come up on the battery pack. So what we do is we dynamically, real time, shuffle that load around so that we stay below that 160 amp circuit that's in there feeding all of those chargers. Mind you, there's an individual breaker for each charger, but we're feeding the distribution for that network out there off of one 160 amp breaker. If anybody's got any questions on that, I mean, we can, I don't want to really get into the weeds right now, but this is just an example of one of the features that we have put into our system so that it can facilitate more chargers at a site than the available power is actually set up for.
Yeah, that is so smart because typically, like you say, fleet vehicles, government or somebody else, they folks plug them in and then they leave. Nobody's going to be switching vehicles to different spots, but electronics can do that. So that is so smart to do that. And then that way all the vehicles are ready in the morning, which is when the folks
Correct.
work
Yeah,
there.
and this comes into play, you know, multifamily where people come in, they park their car, you know, and it's gonna sit there all night. So we've got all night to do this. And in fleet operations, you know, this is very common practice there. We even get a little further into it for off-peak and all of that, but we'll get into that a little bit later on. But
Is the management happening on site or is it happening in the cloud?
it's happening. Well, they're communicating with each other on site, that cluster of chargers, but it's actually managed through the cloud. Do you follow what I'm saying?
So you require an external controller for the chargers to be managed, or that's software only control?
Run that question again.
Do you require an external controller, a piece of hardware that will manage the energy demand?
Oh, no,
And no, it's all software based.
it's all software based. Yeah.
Okay.
And we're gonna get into that. Like I say, we do not have anywhere near enough time right now to go into all the features and options that we put into that. But our somewhat flippant answer to everybody is that no matter what question they ask these days, our answer is yes, we can do that. And it's just amazing all of the features that we've packed into the system. So anyway, yeah, let's move on. Support level 2 and 3 charging systems, autonomous revenue stream. We're all real time for revenue based charging. All the financial transactions are handled in the cloud, and the funds are deposited directly into whoever owns that station. We have some that we own. A lot of other people are just like the gas station, the corner gas station, they sell, you know, charging, and it's 100% autonomous. They don't have to have anybody sitting there messing with it or anything else. We have multi-tiered pricing at that is owner selectable for specific hours on specific days. You know, peak hour session time, overruns, price flexibility. A lot of apartment places and some other places came to us and said, we don't want a revenue generating charging station to have somebody just parked in front of it all the time. So we have a grace period that's a selectable thing. I mean, that's just one of the features that after the car goes full charge, you get notified by your cell phone how much you used, how much it cost, and by the way, you've got X amount of time to move it. And then we start whatever they set that up, whatever rate that is. Some parking lots are charging $10 an hour for that vehicle to occupy that spot. Okay. Full autonomy, again, it's a fully autonomous charger. It's has load management features for both peak and load, where you can establish peak levels for an entire facility, not just the chargers. In other words, if we can monitor, put a current transducer on your incoming power, and if you have peak demand charges at a facility, we can sit there and look at it at that point and say, oh, we need to shed some load out there on these chargers to keep from establishing a peak for that whole facility. Okay. Whereas we can also do peak demand charging and all of that. I mean, all of those little features are in there. Right now we're really 98 plus, call it 99% uptime. We just don't have failures in the field. We're baffled how come so many other people have so many problems. But the last one I heard of, I think, Maceo, you can correct me if I'm wrong, was out there in Phoenix area in Scottsdale. And come to find out, somebody put a new router in and just plain pure and simple didn't plug our router, you know, back into it. So we didn't have an internet connection out there, you know, because they have to have, you know, some kind of internet connection. We can do that through cellular or Wi-Fi or Ethernet. Okay.
Yeah,
Uh,
glad to hear about that 99% uptime. And yeah, as you say, you just never know what somebody might do at some remote site. But that is great because as EV drivers, you know, when you're doing a road trip, having a location that functions when you get to it is of utmost importance. So that is
yeah,
great about that 99%
yeah,
uptime.
yeah. We just don't seem to have failures. Uh, One thing on that is that in a lot of well, I don't know, I don't want to say a lot of them, but we have garnered business from literally removing other, you know, top brand name people and literally throwing their equipment in the dumpster. We don't want it. They don't want it on their property, so we don't know what to do with it. But uh, we get a lot of business that comes in through that route where people are just disgusted with the downtime on the ones that are in there, and then we haven't had any problems. Period. One thing I do want to stress is that our network is such that anytime that we do any software updates, it's network wide and it's worldwide. It all happens, boom, over, you know, we do it usually in the middle of the night when not very many people are using them. Uh, or if they are using them, it'll be offline for just a minute and then they'll do a cold pickup on it whenever it's done. Okay. So in the apartment business and all of that, we do attract high value tenants and patrons at businesses, restaurants, things like that. It does create a revenue stream. These things do generate money. That we save the EV owners time and worry and provide intelligent, flexible, high-powered capabilities for low-cost fleet operations. Uh, uh, One of the things, the catchphrases that we've been using for years is we don't sell chargers, we sell solutions. If you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's really important.
Yeah.
The fact that
We handle, go ahead.
the fact that's really important. The fact that folks in these multi-unit housing, because we all seen, I mean, this club, I joined 1994. We've seen the evolution that it's not just folks that have a driveway or garage of their own. It's now people that are living in units, apartments, and condos who want to get EVs, and so they need your type of solution because that's a different market than there was, you know, decades ago.
Oh yeah, yeah. And the thing that we're encountering, especially with these management companies and developers building these places, and I'll be honest with you, it still just flabbergasted me that we're dealing with brand spanking new properties around here uh, that we go into, and the first thing we find out is that nobody had a clue uh, on, you know, and the electric cost and getting that infrastructure in there for the chargers blows past the cost of the chargers 6 ways from Sunday. You know, and it would have been, you know, a $75 thing, you know, at the construction phase to do it. You know, so you know, we're trying to get the architects and designers and everybody on board with this, that this is for real, but it's really amazing to us the blank looks on these people's faces when we show up, and you know, it's going to cost $25,000 or $30,000 to get electric, you know, run to the parking garage.
Yeah, you just gave me an idea for a future speaker. We need to get some architects in here, and maybe we can teach them as much as they can speak to our group. Yeah.
Yes, because it's just baffling to me how in this day and age they could be so behind the curve, but we're seeing it on a daily basis. Brand spanking new properties that are being constructed. I think we've got one up here that we were dealing with, and they very much, you know, wanted to put chargers on the property, but it was going to be ridiculous amount of. You could not put another clothes dryer on the entire 390 units, I think, in there right now. And you couldn't put another clothes dryer on that whole property.
However, I mean, that's one end of, you know, the spectrum and continuum. But on the other end, there are other developers, some of the larger ones, you know, across, you know, in the country that are on the far end of the other extreme. I mean, Doug and I, you know, we'll laugh sometimes with the team because we recall, I guess it was circa, you know, maybe 2020, 2020, where we had a meeting with one of the largest, you know, property developers in the country, multifamily residential. And I think there were 7 or 8 of, you know, their, you know, top leadership team members, executive staff, from operations to commercial to project management, et cetera. And, you know, they told us about 3/4 of the way through, you know, about an hour and 15, hour and 20-minute long meeting. Well, Maceo and Doug, you know, those properties that you guys have been working on where you've been, you know, these 300 unit, you know, multifamily residential developments, where you've been installing 12 to 20 chargers per project. In about 2 or 3 years, you guys are going to start seeing requirements for about 40 to 50 chargers, you know, for that equivalent size development. Well, it was the next year where we got, you know, our first, you know, quote from that request for pricing from that same developer for 44 chargers, you know, on the same, you know, 300 unit style, excuse me, wraparound development. Now, and then a year later, you know, we were doing a project with these guys where the initial phase and rollout is like 50 chargers, and then there's you know, expandability for they're doing stub outs and make ready for an additional 2 chargers for each one of, you know, each one of those 50 chargers that we installed at the front end of the project. So I think some of them are catching on, you know, that they're, you know, and what will happen is, you know, if they, for the ones that are slow to adopt that kind of to take on that kind of adoption, then their prospective new tenants will simply go to the new developments down the street or across the street that have EV charging stations on the property, and they'll start to lose tenants. So that's what we see happening right now, right before our very eyes. It's a nice trend.
Yeah. And to exemplify, you know, to extrapolate on what Maceo just said, we had one brand spanking new. We're based in Plano, if you know where that is, right across the street from Frisco and the Star Center and all of that.
Yep.
And let's just say high-end area. And just down the road from us, a property. And the reason they wanted to talk to us was because brand spanking new property. I mean, you could smell the fresh paint on it. And they built 2 wraparound units across the street from each other. And their property managers were complaining to the regional managers that on a daily basis, you know, 2 or 3 people would walk in and the first thing out of their mouth was, can I charge my electric vehicle on this property? And when they said no, they turned around and walked out the door. They didn't want to look at a unit, didn't care about the price, anything else. They wanted to live where they could charge their car.
Good that people are asking.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, what we're looking at here is basically EV tech, not basically, I mean, in some instances, we just will sell equipment, support it and everything else. But a lot of people come to us for a complete project, stem to stern, you know, either, you know, dirt to a finished project or whatever, whether it's a DC fast charging station site akin to the corner gas store, gas station, or, you know, these apartment complexes and all of that. We will do the whole thing for them, everything. Okay. Slide, Maceo.
So real quick, if I can ask, in
Go
your
ahead.
first slide, you mentioned gas stations. Have you heard about Buc-ee's now? Everybody knows Buc-ee's are big gas stations have started to put in charging. And have you worked with any of the Buc-ee's or other?
I've been trying to get into Buc-ee's for over a decade and a half now. Okay. And I don't know who the heck you need to talk to. They got a wall that's very thick and very tall between you and we filled out all kinds of stuff. I've done everything that I can do to get in there. Even, to the point of, let us just put the charging stations in here and do a revenue share with you, whatever. They do have a lot of Tesla destination chargers there, but
That's what I've seen. I haven't seen the CCS one at Buc-ee's.
yeah, and that, like I say, that's another one of those things that just frost me to no end.
Folks that want CCS
However,
at Buc-ee's too, and they have,
Yeah.
like you said about adapters, but a lot of folks, they want something that just is made for their vehicle and not having to use an adapter. And
oh yeah, and our all of our DCs have 2 ports on them. For example, a 360 kW charger, we can configure it coming out the door with a CCS and a NACS connector on.
Great, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's no big
Most
deal for
everybody-
us.
It
Yeah.
just is Chatamo out, but that's a smaller.
Chatamo, come on.
But I mean, those two.
Really, an older Leaf, and that's it. Okay, I mean,
Right, and that's why I just
not going to lose any sleep over that.
to include the third fast charging standard. But yeah, the 2 ones that are by far used by most folks are the CCS one and the NACS. Yeah.
Yeah. And we were spending a lot of time trying to figure out how and why Musk was going out there with Tesla and planting all these chargers. And I found out something about 3 weeks ago that put it all in perspective. In the last 12 months, Tesla's made $2.4 billion in carbon credits.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. That's another one of those monetizing charging. And yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
well, as they often say, follow the money. So yeah, exactly.
follow the money. Right. All right. So here's what we're going to show you. Whenever we sat down and we got together, we work real close with our back end guys that developed all of this. And one of the things that we realized was our criteria for a system has got to be super simple for the owner operator. And we did. I mean, we packed a lot of knowledge and skill into that, but it's really simple to set these up and maintain, the whole back office end of it. Okay. And it's all autonomous. The other thing is that we didn't want to bog down the end user with any complications about, well, do I belong to this network? Do I belong to that network? Anything like that. We have no fees, dues, memberships, or anything like that. Our whole system was developed through the same 5 people that developed Android. The same engineers that developed the Android platform. So what we've done is that we've got a QR code on the charger. You go up there and just like a menu in a restaurant, click, and it says, hey, how do you want to pay for this? And you have the choice at that point. We will take anything. We're not proud. We'll take everything.
That's fantastic, because I've heard so many folks, folks in our club and other folks that say, yeah, I don't want to have 6 different cards for different charging networks.
No, not at all. We eliminated that from the get-go. We just don't want to do it. We call it Scan Pay Go. If you wish, you can download the app to your phone and then you can put your preferences in there. But it's your phone on your secure system. It's not, anywhere else. And we take all standard payments, iPay, Apple Pay, whatever it is, PayPal, credit cards, you name it. You do it once and you can save it in your phone if you wish, and all of that. Now, I might add that by the end of this year, we're going to get into this in a minute. Again, I'm getting off on the technical aspect, but all of our DC chargers from day one, when we built those and developed them, the DC chargers, all of those were ISO 15118. Okay. And what that means is that not only are they bi-directional on energy, but the newer vehicles are coming out with that protocol, so that you don't have to do anything. That information's stored in your car. You just get out and plug it in, and everything happens automatically from there.
That's the way to go. And bi-directional is something that we'll certainly want to talk with you.
Yeah.
You.
Yeah. Currently, we have an 11 kW charger, but all of our that has got that. But eventually, they will all of our AC and DC chargers. But our DC chargers, we were the first ones to have 950 volt, even though there was nothing out there that could take it. From the first one that was built, it was built at 900, that it can go up to 950. We're going to go ahead by the end of next year to 1,000 volts. And the only reason for that is we're starting to see a lot of activity on over-the-road trucking, believe it or not.
Oh,
that's very real.
I was thinking of the Porsche that has like 800 volts, but yeah, that would be true.
Yes, there is an 800 volt platform out there, and the industry is going to that. And what that does is it makes a whole bunch of DC chargers obsolete. Because the entire industry is going to go to a minimum 800 volt standard. But there are some that are a little bit higher than that. That's why we started out at 950, and we said, well, what the heck, we're at 950, let's go to 1,000. So
Sure.
that's where we're going to. But there's not a lot of vehicles out there that can use that. There's not a lot of vehicles that can charge at 300 kW either.
And it's going to be a mixed bag, I think, for a while. Hopefully the lower kW units will get relocated from really high use popular sites and then put maybe, in a corporate site or something where all their vehicles can't use the.
Yeah, it just remains to be seen. Okay.
Okay. It's kind of like they're now taking a lot of the wind turbines and they're repowering the sites, because the best wind site, you want to put something that's bigger and better, but you can take the older equipment and relocate it to somewhere else.
Oh God, I forgot to put a picture in my thing. It's been, yeah, we're adamantly aware of that. One of the things that we built in the past was and it's funny because I got a photograph. We had 56 Teslas that were sucking power off of us at the Earth Day about 3 or 4 years ago.
Wow.
At the state fair. And guess what was sitting on top of the structure? We had just a bolt down in a parking lot, and we had a wind turbine, an urban turbine, we called it, sitting right on top of that thing. And the overall design was that we could have batteries in the head of that charging station, the top piece of it, where underneath the wind turbine, where we could store 20 to 40, 50 kW of power to handle the intermittent and then that way, if the wind was blowing, it would be constantly charging that battery up as well. We've been there, done that. Okay, and we're getting back into that, but we'll get into that in a minute. Okay.
Thinking of covering things, there's a question in the chat from our VP, Robert Sanchez. Do you anticipate entering into the market for aircraft and watercraft?
The short answer would be yes.
Okay.
I did a project. We tried to do this years ago with San Antonio to go to electric drive on those little boats running around in San Antonio.
Yeah.
And it just made sense. It'd be quiet as a church house mouse too, but they were a little reluctant to do that back then.
As we've already said, it takes a while to get people adjusted and so forth. But I mean, for some reason, Lake Conroe is coming into mind. There's some marinas around that you may not get a lot of business to start with, but it's kind of a chicken and egg thing that a lot of folks may not want to have electric
yeah.
vehicles on Lake Conroe unless they had a place to charge them. And, if you're, building quality products and you want to get them out so that people get to know you, you might have to jump out there and
Yeah.
put it in a marina. And then of course, also at small airports where they have personal aircraft that
Yeah.
the small aircraft are going to go electric before the larger.
Well, we've got a big background in aerospace, so I don't want to,
Oh.
I don't want to get into that right now, but the technology that we're privy to makes jet engines even and reciprocating aircraft obsolete, as well as gas-powered cars. Manny Torres just had a question out there, and I'd like to address it. I saw it pop up.
Yes.
Do we offer turnkey solutions? And most assuredly, we do. We're doing projects in multiple states right now, and some of those projects, we how do I say this?
Okay, you
It
can
was years
start
ago.
that service.
Yeah. That we realized that the energy to support all of this infrastructure was going to be a critical part of it, and we were somewhat I don't know, I don't want to use the word crazy, delusional, I guess is the word I want to use. And now all of a sudden, this is big stuff with the Department of Energy and everybody else and the utility industry. But we have the ability right now and are actually building charging stations with four, it's two DC 360s with 4 ports at 180 kW each, if all four of them are going. And that's 720 kW, and we're not even connected to the grid.
Wow.
Yeah, we could be, and in most cases we will be, and we'll actually be augmenting grid with distributed generation and microgrid. But is what we're doing is we're building electric vehicle charging infrastructure that is 100% resilient from the grid. In other words, if there's a major whatever that is, something happens that the grid goes down, our sites would still be functioning.
Yeah, and that's important. I mean, I've been asked before, well, what happens when a whole bunch of people on the coast here want to drive inland because a hurricane is coming? And yeah, we all know that the power can go out, and to be able to have that charging power available. I mean, not everybody keeps their vehicle, fully charged, ready to go. And
True, yeah. And to that extent, again, we're a solutions company, but we started doing this in the mid-90s, and most people just couldn't get their mind wrapped around it. We did some military installations and utility fleets and stuff like that. But we were building sites with renewable energy, and now we and battery technology, and now we can actually generate on site. And I think our all-in cost right now, I mean, that's delivered AC out at 480 volts is south of 5 cents per kilowatt is what it comes down to, which is less than half of what the utility can give it to you.
yeah, absolutely. People would love to charge for 5 cents per kilowatt hour.
Well, that's not what that's what we're generating power.
Okay, yeah,
We can still we're still going to sell it at 40.
Okay, I got you. Right. No, that's one of the costs, and then you've got other site costs, but obviously it can be less when the power cost is reasonable. Then you can keep your overall cost reasonable, because a number of folks have talked about how when you're out on the road, you're going to a public site versus charging at home. There's a cost differential there, so you need to still be reasonable for the cost when you're
but it's you're at that point you have to understand, and I think everybody that drives an electric pretty much understands it's the convenience that you're paying for.
right. Yep.
It's not the power. Okay, of course your home power is going to be less. Okay, it's going to be less to charge at home, but back to some of the research that we did in the early 90s, we found out that 95% of the registered vehicles and the privately owned vehicles in America traveled less than 50 miles a day. That was 95% of the vehicles. And so that pretty much means home-based charging.
Yeah. Have
Assuming you had a home.
have you looked and specifically addressed the market of like Uber and Lyft drivers? Because there are a number of those drivers who drive electric vehicles, and they obviously need to charge multiple times a day.
And back to my statement about some of the flexibilities that we build into our systems. We have simultaneous multi-tiered pricing.
Ah,
Everything from free for, like, in municipalities that we're doing this, city vehicles can charge for free. And think of it like a parking meter. You know? So if a fleet vehicle in the city is away from base and they just want to, you know, opportunity charge up, whatever the case may be, right? We've got lots of ways to do it. Everything from RFID that you can just, you know, pop it and go, or a code that they put in on and they would still use a cell phone to communicate with it. And it can charge, and we could have multi-tiered charging. Well, at multi-tiered charging, it's like John Q. Public pays one. We developed this specifically for hotels. Okay, residents in the hotel, guest in a hotel would pay one rate, but the chargers open to the public. Well, guess what? They pay a higher rate. So we have multi-tiered pricing that's simultaneous. Everything from 0 to whatever you want to put in there, depending on who's using it at that time.
so somebody like an Uber driver, because they're using a lot, then they would get maybe a discounted rate.
Yes, in other words, yeah, we could set up a discounted rate thing that the Uber drivers would have a rate that they could use the chargers and pay at a different rate.
Okay. And I see that Manny Torres is saying he can help point you to the right people at Buc-ee's.
Oh, that would be lovely. I would love to have a conversation with him, because it just drives me insane whenever I drive past the Buc-ee's going up and down the road. And I look at that fuel island out there, and we were building
hey, Doug,
solar.
here, Manny. I have to jump off to another meeting, but yeah, let's have a separate call. I know that the right people at Buc-ee's and M&8 that are directing those projects for all Buc-ee's nationally.
Okay. So
And I didn't.
if you send an email to our club email, we'll be sure that you get EV Tech's contact info. If you don't
Okay, we'll do. Yeah, we'll do that.
Right,
I'll
thanks,
send it to
Manny.
you guys. Thank you, guys. Take care.
I owe you a dinner
There we go. Take care.
I mean, Buc-ee's
or
could be
something.
a big market. Yeah. Get tied
Yeah.
into Buc-ee's folks. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Take care. Bye.
Thanks, Manny.
Yeah. Yeah, I look at a facility like that, and it just makes me hang my head and just look the other way when I go past them, because we could literally not only put charging stations in there that would be great for them, but we could just about take that facility off the grid too. And we can do this at a very low cost.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to say free, but just as close to it as you can
Oh, yeah.
possibly imagine.
Low cost. Yeah. I mean, people sometimes get suspicious of free too, because, you know, as they say about apps, if you're not paying for something, you are the product, you know, kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
um,
Okay. Yeah, but so anyway, EV Tech, this is something we have host, resell, and referral that we deal with, but we're expanding. We've been flying under the radar for an awful long time, and like I say, you know, you go back 8 or 9 years and you Google electric vehicle charger, and guess what? It was us. That was it.
Yeah.
You know, but and then all of a sudden, you know, there's, you know, everybody and their brother is importing, and that's why in the residential market, we have residential chargers. We don't bend over backwards to try to sell them, and, you know, and all of that, because I mean, I can show you chargers that are $160 on Amazon.
Ooh.
I don't know how good they are, but supposedly they work. Yeah. You'll have to excuse me for a minute.
Yeah, yeah.
And,
So-
and when Doug was referencing, you know, the residential charges, he's referring to the single family, you know, residential charging for, you know, individual homes. Again, you know, we do have that, you know, that platform, and that form factor, that product available. And we do service, you know, that segment of the market, but we don't spend a lot of, you know, time proactively pursuing it, let's put it that way. You know, because it's, you know, there's so many, you know, product and service providers that are chomping away at that segment of the marketplace that, you know, to use an artful expression, it's kind of become a race to the bottom, you know, from a, you know, technology standpoint, it's all a, you know, a price point game. And, you know, that's just not how we're built, you know, as a company, as you can probably assert, you know, based on your time with us, you know, this evening.
Yeah, you want to keep the quality up so that you have a good reputation, as mentioned by Doug there. What you may get it on Amazon for a cheap price. Who knows what kind of quality, how long it's going to last, and so forth.
Yeah, and again, we strive, you know, our goals are real simple. The highest quality equipment with the highest individual components inside of it at the most reasonable price that, you know, in the marketplace. And generally speaking, you know, especially when you get into the bigger chargers, even our AC chargers, commercial AC chargers, we're anywhere between 20 or more percent below our competitors. And we know that we're higher quality than they are.
Yep. You got to get that word out. Yep.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's a, you know, long road to hoe. But we're growing. We're doing it. Let's move on here, Maceo, with this, and then I want to get into this other stuff. Oh, that was it? Okay, great. Yeah, we didn't get too much into the weeds. Like I say, our operating system could be a whole show all by itself. We have got, it's hard to sit there and we're trying to figure out how to compile it into a database, you know, so that you can see all of this stuff at one time. But it's pretty detailed because we have application specific features for every type of scenario that you could possibly imagine, that almost 30 years in doing just the chargers has taught us. And so we packed it all into this operating system.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
question is to see if this is an area that you've addressed. I've read some things that there are neighborhoods in the US where people park along the street. And of course, nobody wants to be tripping over wires and so forth. I've heard that.
Curbside parking, yes, big issue in Boston. We worked with Boston Electric on that issue years ago. And New York, NYPA, New York Power Authority, and
I've heard there's one design where it's kind of similar as in Europe, where people need to bring their own charger cord. So the design would be such that the boxes, they could be on lamp posts or some other kind of post, but no cable or cord present. And the individual EV owner, the person who's going to park in front of their house on the street, would bring their own cord, plug it into the box, do the initiation to start charging, and plug the end of the cord into their car. Have you approached that market at all?
We've tried, and we do have ways of working it, but it just, the cost to do on-street parking is just ridiculous. A, to have power out there, and then B, especially back east,
yeah,
they don't know for sure that they're going to be parking there.
Right, yeah.
You know, my wife is from Brooklyn.
You know, curbside parking, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, the thought of being able to park in front of your house is like a joke. Okay.
Yeah, you go around the block and find any spot you can. Yeah.
Yeah, really, and then walk back to your flat, your house. But yeah, that's a very, very difficult task in back east. Now, what I can tell you is that that's where the corner gas station model comes into play.
Ah, okay, sure.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Back to that statement that I made, that people that use cars to go back and forth to work on a daily basis are generally traveling less than 50 miles a day.
Yeah.
So if you have a vehicle that has 200 miles range legitimately, and that's going to be a lot of them, right? That means once every 4 days, you need to go spend 10 or 15 minutes at a DC fast charger.
Right. And you might get some shopping done at the same time or something like that. So
Yeah. Well, and if you're going to be doing some shopping, then that's where we're doing a lot. Uh, right now, the biggest penetration we're making into the markets with our it's a level 2 charger, but it's 240 single, 208, 240 single phase, and it's between 19 and 22 kW, depending on whether it's 208 or 240.
Yeah.
So we just say 19 kW. So a 19 kW charger at a location where you're going to be for 45 minutes to an hour is going to put a dent in the battery pack.
Yeah.
You're going to get quite a few miles, range enhancement. And if you're at a restaurant for an hour or something and you have like a lot of cars have around 45 to 60 kW battery packs in them. Well, nobody's driving around until they're empty before they look for a charger. Our data showed us years ago, we tracked this for a long time. Most people start looking for a charger at 50% depth of discharge.
Really? Ah, okay.
Yeah.
That's higher than us. But of course, our club members have generally got more experience with EVs than.
Yeah. But if you have the opportunity to hit that, okay, while you're at a restaurant or while you're at the mall or while you're shopping or while you're getting here, whatever that is, where you're going to be parked for a while, those 19 kW chargers really are finding a niche place in the marketplace.
Okay.
Because, my God, the next step up the road from that is the DC charger.
Right. Yeah.
A, you need 483 phase. That's a challenge in itself. B, there's like a 5-fold increase in the cost of the equipment alone. Okay. You go from, $3,000 to $15,000 jump right there for what? 10 kW?
Yeah.
Because a 30 kW is going to run,
Yeah, the other thing we love about the 19 kW charger, for commercial use, it's got so much, broad range applicability. And it is one of those, scenarios where we like to say it kind of fits into the old age adage, better to have and not need than to need and not have. In other words, with the 7 kW commercial chargers, which is a pretty significant, portion of the legacy population, install base that exists at present. But those chargers don't do well, with the larger, format vehicles like the Ford Lightnings, like you said, the 850 volts. The 19 kW charger runs off of a 100 amp circuit, but it has 80 amp output power, right? Max output power. And so a lot of vehicles won't even take on, that kind of a charge. They're not going to benefit from it. But, on the other, on the flip side of that coin, if you've got a Ford Lightning pulling up to a 7 kW vehicle, then it's going to want, some more juice, right? And it's going to be there significantly longer, really about 3x, the charging time. So we're kind of having a love affair, with the 19 kW unit. That's kind of starting to be our go-to and our, workforce for commercial applications.
Okay.
Where it's not a DC charging, depot charging, scenario.
Yeah.
And the beautiful part to just go a little deeper into that quickly is that the 19 kW, we put 2 of them on one pedestal.
Aha.
and do a dynamic load share right there.
Uh-huh.
Because we have the ability to do that, what we call local load management, okay? So we can run a single 100-amp circuit out there and have two chargers covering two spaces. Now,
Nice.
what happens is if you can take the full 80, 80 amps, okay, that's fine. You're charging at that. But if another vehicle pulls in, it's not just going to split it in half. It's going to dynamically do it to keep that whole thing down to that 80 amp on that one circuit. You see what I'm saying? And worst case scenario is that you have two vehicles that are, we're starting to see this happen a lot more, even in apartment complexes, multifamily, where they come in and they put the cars on it, right? Well, even at that point, if their local load management is think about it, you're still almost 50% more power going in there than a 7 kW charger would have made, and we only had to have one 100-amp circuit to do that.
Wow, smart.
And the cost delta on the equipment really isn't all that much more.
Yeah, you've got to look at that curve and decide where the cost and the benefit equal out.
Yeah, it's just gonna, even if it's load sharing, it's gonna charge it faster than the 7 kW charger.
Okay. Let me ask you two guys what your opinion is of wireless under car charging pads. Do you see any future in that or not so much?
Again, you're talking to the guy that developed that with Magna charge. and here's why Magna charge, inductive charging, okay, non-contact inductive charging, it works. All right. There's a few issues behind that is really tough to get around. First off is cost.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Just a boatload of cost per charger.
Okay.
And our records show us right now that for this to be sustainable in the market, not just that, but just charging and electric vehicles, okay, you're going to need about 2.3 chargers per electric vehicle.
Wow.
In other words, home-based charging, and then there's going to be at least two others out there,
Right. Yeah.
Initially until we, get this infrastructure built out. So to have infrastructure that's inductive, no, the cost is just stupid. It works. Don't get me wrong, it does work.
Right.
We did
practical.
Yeah, and to make it effective, we were going up. Well, on the Magna charge, to make it all work, and I'll show you a picture of that in a minute. We were at like 500 volts AC, but we were at 200,000 cycles, hertz.
Yeah.
The first thing we found out, because where we actually developed this, and bear in mind, this was for a military thing where it originally originated from. Let's just leave it with it was in the Navy and it was underwater and they needed to charge it up. Okay. And then under the DARPA thing, it was like electric vehicle charging. It's like, oh, wow, we can use this technology for that. Okay, it works. It's safe. It's sane. It's non-contact. Can't get shocked or anything like that. There's no exposed metal or anything. But the cost, and then the other thing was shielding that cable and everything else from that 200K. We developed this at Hughes in Torrance, California.
Okay.
So just south of LAX and not too far from Long Beach.
Yeah.
Well, until we got all the shielding issues worked out, we were scrambling up and getting in trouble with the FAA on a daily basis until
I bet LAX didn't like.
and it's like, so I mean, it was a huge issue, shielding and all of that to get rid of all of that RFI, the interference, because we were just harmonic stepping all over aircraft communications.
All right, guys. I think we're ready to wrap up here. Are there
I have
any
a question.
questions from the audience?
Wait a second, it's not that.
Okay.
This is the thing I've been waiting for.
Ah,
Doug, are you gonna do the presentation? on your upcoming?
We got just a few minutes to buzz through some pictures, and I don't want to spend much time on them. I just want to, give a comment on what it is you're looking at.
Yeah, buzzing through them would be good, and then we can take questions. How about that?
Yes, okay, that'll work. Yeah, it shouldn't take that long.
Okay. So who's got the pictures? Colin's got the file. Okay.
Yeah. And
Starting to come up. It's got it in the room here. And then you need to.
Can I ask a question while you guys are?
yeah, go ahead.
He needs to
Have you
share.
guys done any vehicle to grid X load stuff? Either
Yes, that's the new they're saying it's the new ISO standard, but we've been there. So yeah, we are vehicle to grid compatible. Our goal is that by the end of this year to have all of our AC chargers in that category too, but all of our DC chargers are ready for that now.
Okay. So you ready to share?
We do have one AC charger that's 11 kW that is compatible with that. But going forward, we're going to have all of our AC chargers have that ability.
and will any of these products be available to residential folks, or is it going to be mostly fleets and commercial?
I think the home charger. Let me see. I'd have to get back with you on that. I don't, because our home charger is not network connected. It's not, it's a dumb charger.
Everyone except for the home charger.
Yeah.
It's effectively like Doug said, it's a dummy charger. It's not network connected. But, there's a roadmap for all of the AC level 2 chargers to have the same, V to G capability as the DC fast chargers do today. Does that help?
I'm going to go with yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think many of us are interested in actual vehicle to home more so than vehicle to grid, because vehicle to grid depends on the business models to have value in selling the electricity from the car back to the grid. But there is value in being able to use the energy in the vehicles to power the home, both for loss of the grid or to maybe power certain loads at night.
Correct. And bear in mind that you have to have line tie disconnects on there if the grid goes away, that kind of be imperative, because you don't want to island out, and do that. Can you get back to the beginning of the slideshow?
This is the first actual photo. You have your name.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't know it was the first one. All right.
Yeah,
That's my little red car.
yeah, I love
I
seeing
just mentioned Torrance, California. That's the one that I had out in California. That's
Oh,
at Hermosa Beach right there.
you had it as a lease vehicle, I assume.
No, I had it as General Motors.
No. I meant that it worked. Oh, okay. Working for General Motors, you weren't leasing it because
Yeah, that was my car that they kept out. I had to commute back and forth between Dallas and California quite a bit when we were working on all of this, because the drive system kind of came through there too, which it's a long story, morphed into Delphi, and it's a long story.
Right, but you had to give the car back. You
guys
keep it.
They didn't know who they were working for one day to the next out there.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's my little red EV1. There's the RAV4. That's a 97 RAV4 EV,
Okay.
all electric. And
Yeah.
would you believe that I know 3 people that are still driving their 97 RAV4s with
And
the
I've
same
heard
battery pack and over 375,000 miles?
And I've heard they can be pretty valuable too, because people want them still. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Still on the same batteries though.
Mhm.
That's the part that blew my mind.
Yeah.
Not many people remember the electric Ranger from Ford.
Mhm.
It had an overkill drive system in it. I think it was just way too much. I
Okay.
blew the back tires out completely in the pits at APS Electric. Somebody said romp on it. I romped on it, and it just smoked both tires until they blew out.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh. Okay.
yeah. There's the 97 S10 electric pickup truck from General Motors, Chevrolet truck division.
Nice.
Yeah, it was a pretty good little truck. It was faster. It was fast too, but it wasn't as energy hog as the Ford was.
Right. Right. Okay.
Yeah. There's me with my Honda EV Plus. Uh, I love that little thing. Um, that's actually taken here in Coppell, Texas. Uh, that
Okay.
was at the Home of the Future. The National Association of Home Builders was built the show home here, and we put a solar roofing system on the house, which was actually shingles. Everybody had to ask, where is it? And you mentioned that the power walls and stuff like that. Uh, I've got other pictures. I don't have time to go dig them out and put them in there, but um, what's the home of the future without the car of the future? Well, we brought
Right.
the Honda EV Plus in. I had a charger there in the garage next to the barbecue. You can kind of see the cord hanging down there. And I used to drive one of those from Los Angeles to Palm Springs all the time out
No.
in California. No problem. No problem at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Uh, that's actually the lab uh, uh, the that we had, and it's technically Farmers Branch, but where I was standing was in Addison, Texas. We were right there, right behind Dallas Semiconductor. We had a lab there for a number of years that we did DOE projects on charging and battery testing and real world testing. These vehicles all had data loggers in them where we collected the data of the time stamp uh, and uh, voltage, current, miles, the whole 9 yards, a bunch of data, temperatures, and everything else. But we got a lot done. But what it was back in the early 90s, mid 90s, uh, trying to get information about what's it going to take for the real world to use an electric vehicle. Well, believe it or not, we did all of that testing right here in Texas.
Ah, nice.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, this is going to blow your mind. That's Reunion Tower in the background in downtown Dallas.
Ah.
Duh. Yeah, not all electrics were in California. Uh, but we were doing a thing with the Council of Governments up here, trying to lay the groundwork for the early adaptation of electric vehicles and what was going to be needed, from the government side and everything else, trying to get the world ready for electric vehicles. And again, this was, let me see, that had to be 97,
Yeah.
late 96 or 97.
And who would have thought at that time that Texas would host a huge EV factory?
Yeah, really. Next slide. Back to what I was saying earlier, it took almost 2 decades to get the industry. There's a Avcon connector,
Yeah.
and there was a Yazaki connector, Avcon connector, the inductive connector, Meltrick. I mean, everybody was doing something different. And that's when we had to put our foot down and say, look, guys, we're going to have to standardize on something out there because this is like building a vehicle that you can only go to a Texaco station to get gas. Okay. It has to be anywhere and it has to be the same. So that's where J1772 came from, the SAE standard for all of that. But that's a Ford sucking on an Avcon. And again, they all used the same protocol, just everybody had a different freaking connector on it. Moving on to the next one. There's one of the inductive paddles. There's a iron, what we call the hockey puck in the middle of it, and flat wrapped, very wide, flat wrapped coil around it. And what it is you're looking at the middle leg of an E-type break apart transformer. Whenever you plugged it into the vehicle, that was right in the middle of it. That was the middle leg of an E-type transformer, if you look at it that way.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's how we got all that energy in there, inductively.
Yeah.
But like I say, the charger was just silly expensive to make all of that. Now, the good side behind it was that the all of that was on off board. So the actual part on the vehicle only weighed about 6 or 7 pounds.
Oh, well, that is good to keep the weight on.
So, I mean, you're not carrying around a charger per se.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Moving on. This was when quick story on this. I have a long history with AeroVironment and Paul McCready out there. We go way back. We built the Gossamer that flew across the English Channel, and I don't want to get into all of that, but the reason they're so prominently displayed on that was our company had sponsored a car in the APS Electrics in Arizona for several years at that point. We had an event where it's an electric challenge and all of that. And we worked with APS and Salt River Project for that matter, but APS. And APS had the car and a motor, but no controller and no battery. Well, I was over at the Mesa facility, which is really not too far from that track where that track used to be. We kind of borrowed the battery pack out of a nickel metal hydride battery pack from an EV1 and put it there. And AeroVironment and a bunch of grad students from both UC Davis and Texas A&M, donated the labor, and so we built a vehicle, and literally what you're seeing is that we got before the track went hot, was hot, and we had to push it through inspection because we'd never even powered it up. We got to do one lap around the track, took it over in the pit, and there's all of my charging stuff that we rigged up for it to charge the batteries up, and went out the next day, and with the car that we threw together in 3.5 days from scratch.
3.5 days.
Yeah. Like I said, it was ridiculous how much effort it took to do that. But it started from a meeting that we were walking out of at APS Electrics, and they donated the car. And I loaded it up into our trailer and drove it over to Monrovia, California. We started working on it over there and then brought it back to Phoenix. And like I say, we only got a chance to drive it once around the track. And then the next day we were out there, and the car that we beat was a $2.5 million Rick Mears, who had just won the Indy 500 that year, was their driver. And we were 2 laps ahead of them at the end of the race.
2 laps. That's way ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a Can-Am style course, and yeah. And so it was just hilarious. And not only that, we finished the race. It was just 80 kilometers on a Can-Am course because that's what they were trying to see. But without charging the car up, we took it out of the track, out to dinner that night, drive around town for a while, and then back to the hotel. I
Okay.
mean, I don't know how many miles we put on that car that day. But yeah, we broke a lot of records back in the day. I mean, I could get into further details. Let's move on real quick. Yeah. Dig this. We were drag racing EV1s.
Yeah. Wow.
And it was funny because you hear the tires right on they got sensors in there. So the tires were constantly trying to brake. It had automatic traction control. Let's put it that way. Okay.
No.
And, but those things were, I mean, 0 to 80, it just plants your butt in the seat and leave you there until you get to 80 miles an hour.
Mhm.
Mind you, if you had the laptop that you can kill that speed regulation, that was about 9,000 RPM at 80 miles an hour, and I could easily kill that. The motor was good for 14,000 RPM, and I actually took one. I don't have the picture right now, but we were trailering one back from the Mesa facility, and all we did was took the mirrors off of it, put wheel pants on it, and duct taped a extension cone on the back end of it. And USAC was doing the was officiating, and that was at Fort Stockton, Texas. And we you got to run one way clock, run the other way clock, both ways. And we averaged out to 183.36 and fundamentally a stock EV1.
Wow. Mhm.
Yeah.
Just showed what the technology could do that year. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, oh my Lord, the battery technology and all now, just oh my gosh, yeah, okay.
All right.
But that was fun. We had news people. These were some of the cars out there at the same time. Those are the Lightning series. I don't know if you ever remember that, but a lot of colleges, universities, and whatnot, they're all electric. They're Indy cars, open wheel Indy cars, and it was really weird being at the track, watching them come into a turn at 120 plus miles an hour, and all you heard was a tire noise.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
That's something. Mhm.
yeah. That's one of the trucks that we had up here in Dallas under the DOE project. And we did a partnership with KRLD Radio. And this was the year that at that point, the brand new Texas Rangers baseball stadium. And so we had to be at every home game, but we did morning traffic reports, on the road traffic reports with this truck, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
There's one of the 97 electric S10s. That's Swepco, which is over in East Texas. They made an issue out of the first one off the assembly line at the Shreveport facility because they were the service, the electric service provider for that facility at Chevy Truck Division, where they built them. And yeah, we did what you don't see in that picture is what's just above that, but we'll see that in a minute. This was one of two that we did with it's now AEP, but it was Central Southwest at the time corporation. This was two of their opcos. But that's an all-electric S10. This was at PSO up in Oklahoma. That's at the corner of 7th and Detroit. Okay. This is, if you can see that canopy structure there, that's an amorphous silicon. And to make a long story short, Bob's Temple used to be the chairman of General Motors. He left there, went to work for ECD, and one of the things that ECD had was a thin film amorphous silicon, and they asked me to build electric charging stations using that. So that's what we did there in conjunction. And by the way, if anybody asks you if you want to go up in a high ranger, just pass, okay? That scared the living bejeebers out of me. It was a 110-foot high ranger bucket lift. Nuh-uh.
Yeah.
I wasn't moving, and that thing was wiggling all over the place, scaring me to half to death. There's a little, the just for the public, this was open to the public, so we showed them coming in off the utility to the solar augmenting it, and then the charger, and then the vehicle. And I had a little display unit you can see right underneath that meter on the green box on the left between the two cabinets. We had a meter that could show what the solar was doing instantaneously and what the chargers were drawing instantaneously. So you can look, you can sit there and see what this was actually doing.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a recent install of ours. And powered it up, and it's not the first time that we've had somebody wanting to know, are they on yet? Are they on yet? I think the weirdest one for me was out in the middle of West Texas at a guest ranch. And we put 4 chargers over there, and we hadn't even mounted them yet. And I was standing there, and a Tesla pulled up, and it's like, hey, how did you know that we were putting them here? And where did you come from to get here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know some
That
folks.
previous picture, by the way, guys, is the 19 kW that we spoke of previously, charging a Ford Lightning.
The box is the same footprint as our 7 kW. You know, just the cable's a little heavier. There's one of the top of the line 500 amp display screen. We can do it without the display screen on there. We can just put a 7-inch, screen on it for just information or whatever. And that's the dual ports. And we can configure one CCS and one NACS. It just depends. Generally, anybody that's got a Tesla that wants to use a CCS, there's an adapter. Just keep it in the car also. That way you can use anything. I really don't want to get into the mud with this fight over which standard is going to be the standard, because it just disgusts me that Tesla went out and did something completely different from the entire rest of the automotive world. That was fine for them, but I just don't want them dictating to everybody what charging standard is going to be used. Musk seems to think everybody's going to have to use a Tesla charger. And to that extent, it was pretty difficult until he opened it up that we could actually use that, because they patented that darn thing and wouldn't let anybody else use it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then you have the big screen, of course, that could be good for advertising. I'm not sure if you're aware, but the Volta chargers in our local area, they're at Baybrook Mall. They are free for people going to the mall, and most of them are level 2. There is one DC fast charger, and it's all just covered by advertising on the big
Yes, it is. Some of the larger advertising we can do on there, way more. It's like we said a long time ago, for what the advertising is, you can have the power. I don't care. It's just one of those things. This is an example of just how far it can go. A solar canopy charging station. Just think of the gas station, and Manny was on there earlier. Buc-ee's. Okay. I look at all of those huge long covers on that. I did not get a chance to put it in here, but back in the 90s, mid 90s, we were doing Texaco stations with the amorphous silicon. We did them in Guatemala, where the power comes on and off, on and off, on and off, on and off. And they just couldn't stand the fact that it was shutting down their, everything at their convenience stores. And then we did some in California as well. And I don't think I've got a picture of it whenever the power went out in California a few years back, but I do have a picture of it, from the air of the island and all of that at a Texaco station in Santa Clarita, California. This was back, believe it or not, budget rent-a-car. You could rent electrics. We had Ford pickup trucks. We had Honda EV Plus. We had the EV1, of course, the RAV4, and some other ones. And one of the things that we found out a long time ago, when you start talking about the electric lifestyle, if you will, a test drive is one thing. Rent the car for a day or two.
Yeah, that's what I've recommended to a number of folks.
Yeah,
too.
and I'm here to tell you, you can't scrape a smile off people's faces after that. Okay, uh, uh, we call it butts and seats. You can talk yourself silly. That's one of mine. God, I made the mistake of letting go of that.
It's like a kit car.
No, that's a Mosler GTP.
Ah,
That was the first car banned from Grand Prix racing.
okay. I'm not familiar with that one. Okay, because
It's
it
all
looks,
composite.
yeah.
It's all composite. Stole the drive system out of an EV1. We built 5 of those for Neiman Marcus
Okay.
for Christmas '94. And they were all electric. Uh, it had speed regulation in it, but again, that didn't stop me from getting nailed on the North Dallas tollway doing 180 miles an hour.
Uh,
Well, I just wanted to see.
Right.
Back to some of the collaborations I did with Aero Environment. Like I say, Paul McCready and I, we did the Gossamer that flew across the English Channel,
Yeah.
solar powered. And then we also, that's how we wound up doing the Sun Racer. And that's how I met Bob Stemple from General Motors was, could we build a solar powered vehicle to drive in the Australian World Challenge, Solar Challenge. And yeah, we just kind of blew everybody away. But this was a project that's at the Pacific Missile Range in Kauai, uh, which was an alternate landing site for the space shuttle on top of everything else.
Yep.
Like an 11,000-foot runway there. And just about needed that to get that going. What that thing was made to do is we called it four-man satellite. What it would do is you'd take off and you just sit there and circle around and climb up to a ceiling of about 80,000 feet. And then at night, it would fly a Lazy John, figure 8. And then it would drop down to about 60,000 feet. And by then the sun was back up and then it would climb back up to 80,000 feet. The first one that we tested was over Edwards Air Force Base for almost 2 years before we brought it down just to inspect it. It's always above the weather up there at those altitudes.
Yeah.
So getting solar charging was no big deal. The sun was out every day.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah. But you could just loiter over a site. This was one of the many military projects that we did. What you're looking at is the Mongrel Scout Reconnaissance Vehicle for the U.S. Army. Couple of quick notes on that. It was a hybrid, but we only carried 5 gallons of fuel. Had a 3-cylinder Volkswagen diesel engine in it that run a 30 kW generator. And it was battery. It would operate up to 50 miles in the field, pure electric, before the engine had to run. So what we call the stealth operation. The suspension system in it was from 1 inch off the ground to 22 inches off the ground. There's a 100% active suspension system in that thing, and there's a 4x40 kW hub motor drive.
Oh, wow.
Using some radically different electric motors in there. They're much, much lighter weight than any electric motor out there. And also they're 98% efficient too, just in case you're wondering. And the other fun part behind that for the techies out there was we went from $100 kW for the power electronics down to $10 per kW. So
Yep.
big difference, on that and reliable. But and here's the fun thing: 0 to 95 sub 4.
Okay.
That thing, I've been shot off an aircraft carrier in an F4, and that was faster.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's just a brief. I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg. I've
So
got
glad you got
tons
those
of other photographs.
Yeah, that's a fantastic thing at the end. So just real quick, ask anybody in the room or anybody online if they've got questions, something. I mean, we've covered so many different subtopics here with these.
Yeah.
I mean, I just love it. So, yeah, because we're way over time here, but I think everybody's been enjoying all that great info and photos and everything, Doug. So let us know if you're down in the Houston area. I'm sure some of us would love to get together with you for lunch or something like that. And Manny, as he said, would like to contact with you, talk about Buc-ee's and other things. So anything else? I'd asked Keith Howard, but he said he's not ready tonight to talk about racing, but we'll get Keith Howard, one of our members, on either next month or the month after. We've got the April events coming up, so folks, see if you're going to be available for that. And this month is the Houston Auto Show. So if that's it, we will wrap it up. Thanks again, Doug and Maceo. Really appreciate it.
Maceo, yeah. Feel free to reach out to us. You have our contact information.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll make sure it's out there. Yeah, thank you.
All right. So another fun meeting. All right. Seth likes it too. All right. All right. We will see you folks next month, second Thursday. I think that's like April 8th, something like that. And we'll continue on in 2024. All right. Thanks.
You
Bye.
guys, thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you.